How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast, and welcome to the ongoing saga of reviewing every single horror film that I saw in the year of 2024. We're going to be hitting it up the next couple of months here on the show, and I can't wait to get it started with you guys. But before we go ahead and get started, I want to remind everybody to make sure you're subscribing to the show wherever you're listening to the show, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get the show. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button and telling all of your friends, family members, everyone you know in the spooky realm to check out Buddy's House of Horror podcast, the premier and only horror podcast on the internet. Make sure you guys are spreading the good word about the show, and I hope you enjoy today's episode, continuing to review every single horror film that I saw within last calendar year. So with that, it's time to get spooky. All right, everybody, how's it going, boys and ghouls? Welcome back to another spine-tingling episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. It's been a fat minute since we have talked about the films that I saw in 2024. We picked this up back last October was the last time we had an installment of this, and now we're picking it back up with the month of April 2024, a little peel back behind the curtain, a little behind the screams, if you will. It's now April 2025. So it's been a full year since I've seen the films that I'm going to be talking about in this first portion of the episode. I always try to bank some of these episodes for October a little bit early. So yes, it is the middle of April right now when I'm recording this. Of course, you guys are going to hear it significantly later than that. So I don't know what's going on in the world at the time. But right now, I know that Ghost released a new single called Lacrima just a couple days ago, and it has been on repeat in my eardrums, coming through my AirPods, coming through the speakers of my television, in my car, constantly since it came out. Can't get that song out of my head, obsessed with that song. Looking forward to what the album has coming out soon. It comes out a week and a few days from now, actually. But that's old news, because in October, it had already been out for a long time. So this is old news, but this is just what's going through my head at this exact moment in time. But we're going to be picking things back up with all the horror films that I saw in 2024. Of course, now it is 2025. What I originally planned to do in 2025, and it absolutely did not work out. So my intention for 2026 is to stop having these episodes where I talk about every single film that I saw in a particular year, because hopefully in 2026 I do what I wanted to do this year, but I simply just couldn't get it together in order to do so, which is to do these monthly, just to have these be a monthly installment, being every horror film I watched in January, in February, in March, etc., etc. But for a multitude of reasons this year, that just simply was not in the cards. I was going to do it, but the thing was, is by the time I got ready to do the January episode, I had a bunch of shit going on, and then all of a sudden it was the middle of February, then February was over, and I'm like, bro, it's just too late to pick up with this concept. But I'm going to do it in 2026. I'm going to try my best to do it, because frankly, it's quite hard to remember a lot of these films that you saw such a long time ago, so it's going to feel better to do it a little bit more fresh, and then at the end of the year kind of just do my top 50 like I did this year, but it might be a little lower than that, but whatever. But that's my goal for 2026. I kind of want to do that in 2026, just to not only have the films be a little bit more close in my brain, but to have the episodes turn out a little better, have them be a little bit more concise, have a little bit more of a consistent schedule instead of having to bank so many for October. I still want to do tons of episodes in October, obviously, but I kind of want to have more throughout the year. So that's my 2026 resolution, is to record more episodes of the show. Not just that one, but just to have a more consistent schedule. And of course, this is April 2025, so I'm setting up a lofty goal for 2026, which is many, many moons away. But that's what I want to do, because I want to make this episode I want to make these episodes more and more frequently. I just enjoy doing podcasts. I mean, sometimes it's a little hard just to, sit down, talk to yourself for a couple hours every little bit. But, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy that you guys enjoy watching it. But again, if you guys haven't already, just another reminder, if you guys aren't subscribed to my channel over on YouTube, if you're not subscribed over on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you guys are listening to podcasts, please make sure that you do that. Make sure you're spreading the good word about Buddy's House of Horror. If you have friends in the horror community, family members who love terror, who love to be scared, love spine-chilling events such as these, make sure that they are being pointed in the correct direction to Buddy's House of Horror. I really appreciate the support. I really enjoy getting this show out there to you guys, and I really enjoy all of you guys who take the time to listen to the shit that I have to say about horror films, horror music. I mean, we talked a little bit about music already in this episode. And I am open to suggestions. I mean, I want to make this show for you guys, so I would love to know what you guys want to hear me talk about. So if you have any suggestions, please reach out to me. Let me know what you want to hear in future episodes of the show. But for today, we are picking up with some of the spring months of 2024. We're going to see how many months we can get through in one particular episode to talk about all the horror films that I saw in 2024. We're starting off in April 1st with Freaks by Todd Browning. It's debatable or not whether or not this is a horror film. It definitely has a horror atmosphere to the climactic portions of it. But it's sort of on the fence. It's definitely a genre-bending sort of film. Watched it on April 1st, April Fool's Day, because, I mean, it's a circus film, so I thought it would be appropriate to watch, just trying to think of what I could watch on April Fool's Day. And I hadn't seen Freaks before, so I've always been wanting to check it out. So I watched it. 1932, Todd Browning, a crisp 66 minutes, so not a tough time to get through. Can a full-grown woman truly love a midget? A circus's beautiful trapeze artist agrees to marry the leader of sideshow performers, but his deformed friends discover she is only marrying him for his inheritance. This film, a lot of it has to do with the battle between the parties. I mean, obviously, the freaks, quote unquote, are the circus performers, and at the end of the film, it's a very famous scene in the rain when they're all ganging up on the woman to give her what she truly deserves for being this horrible person who's just trying to take advantage of these freaks. And yeah, the film is great. I like the film a lot. I gave it a solid 3 stars, which for a film of this era is a very good rating for me. Because again, like the quality of the films in the 30s, although I love the Universal monster films and stuff like that, like the quality of like a lot of films are a little, they weren't very good at making films this early on. They're still trying to figure things out. Like films with dialogue were still very new in 1932. I don't think people really got fucking good at making movies until the 70s and 80s. And even then it was only like the top tier, like filmmakers. Like, I don't know. So 3 stars for a 30s film. That is a sizable rating from me. Next film I saw was on April 2nd, which was Home Movie, which was a 2008 found footage film. Some memories are best forgotten. Reverend David Poe and his psychiatrist wife trade hectic New York life for an idyllic rural farmhouse, the perfect place for 10-year-old twins Jack and Emily to run, play, and imagine. Documenting this lifestyle change, David decides to film every holiday and special family event. To the Poe's horror, their home movies reveal an increasing malice and evil within their children. I love the aesthetic of this film, obviously. I love found footage films. I love films that feel like home movies. Of course, this one is called Home Movie, but you know what I mean? Like me and my family, we would always... That's where I got a lot of my early filmmaking background. Like I always had a video camera in my hand. We were always filming not only holidays, big parties, but just kind of like filming whatever. And my family is the type of family who watches our home videos fairly often. Not so much anymore since like my father's passed and stuff like that. But like we would often just sit around and watch home movies like constantly. I love the extra elements that this film takes place, because when my family stopped recording on VHS and started recording on different formats, you kind of had to put them on a DVD in order to watch them. Like you would film like onto like some sort of like memory card, and you had to put them on a DVD. So this film actually opens with a DVD menu essentially. It looks very similar to the home movies that even we would watch when we were shooting on that format, but also my dad went and transferred a lot of our VHS tapes onto DVDs. That was like I will say that was a hobby of his, because he did it a lot. Like we have so many different DVD copies of stuff that he would spend hours and hours transferring them onto DVDs. So it was a very nostalgic film to me just to like look at. In terms of story and, general, I don't know, just the general vibe of the film, I didn't like that much. Like I didn't think the story was particularly interesting or scary. It was boring through a lot of segments for me, just because when I like watching home movies, it's my home movies, I guess. I do still enjoy it for like parts of it, but it's not one of my favorite found footage movies by any means. It's not one of my favorite films that are supposed to be in real life like that at all. This one was a solid 2 stars for me. Like I appreciate the film for like what it looks like and what it feels like more than what the film actually was. Like I didn't think that the story was all that interesting. I didn't think the kids turning evil was all that interesting. The ending I barely fucking remember. So I did give it 2 stars. Like it's not anything that's like abysmal or anything, but like definitely not a film I'm going to be returning to more and more often. Glad I saw it, but probably never going to watch that one again. April 4th, so coming up a couple days later, I watched the film Dementia from 1955, otherwise known as Daughter of Horror, which is also the film that they are watching in the Blob in the big theater where the Blob comes through and they all have to run out of the cinema doors. This is from 1955, directed by John Parker, 56 minutes, so this one is a breeze to get through. Not one word is spoken on the screen. In a shadowy world stitched from nightmares, a young woman's harrowing journey is a seedy hotel unveils her traumatic past. Haunted by violence and stalked through desolate streets, her psyche unravels as she confronts an abusive husband and unsettling memories. This film is a good nightmare film. Like, this is a good film to put on in the middle of the night. While you're kind of sleepy, you want to be drifting in and out of sleep just a little bit, just so you don't know what is going on in the film and what's going on inside your own mind. It's an acid trip film before acid trips were real a thing in the 70s. Like, this film is so trippy. It's creepy. The atmosphere is great. The scares are great. The chilling atmosphere is great. It's basically a silent film. It is, there's so much about this film that you just need to see it for yourself. Again, it's most famous because it was in the Blob. But I think it stands on its own. I think it's a very underrated film. It's one of the best films from the 50s that I like. Maybe not in the top 10 50s films, but it's definitely up in the films from the 50s that I think about when I think about the films from the 50s that I like. Took a little bit of a break from horror films after that. Films in general. It took me about 2 weeks to watch another film, and that was Sasquatch Sunset. Went to go see that in the theater. Of course, very tumultuous film, very debated amongst the community. Not exactly a horror film all the way through, but it's about mythical creatures. It's about monsters. I count it as a horror film. In the misty forests of North America, a family of Sasquatches, possibly the last of their enigmatic kind, embark on an absurdist, epic, hilarious, and ultimately poignant journey over the course of 1 year. These shaggy and noble giants fight for survival as they find themselves on a collision course with an ever-changing world around them. I love myself some Bigfoot. This film was a solid one-time watch. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. 2.5 stars. I talked about this film again in my 50 favorite films of 2024, which is an episode I did a few months ago. So if you want more information about Sasquatch Sunset, definitely go and check that one out. And we're going to be moving on to later on that day when I watched Halloween 1978. I did this in preparation for the Halloween Rank podcast that Miles and I were going to be doing that upcoming October. It always takes me a bit to get through the franchise of films that we do, so I tend to start them kind of early. In this case, I started mid-April with Halloween 1978. Of course, one of, if not my favorite film of all time. It's a toss-up between Halloween and The Godfather of my favorite film of all time. But definitely my favorite horror film of all time is Halloween, 1978, John Carpenter. The night he came home, 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night, 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental institution and returns into the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill again. This is the coziest horror film of all time. I love the fall atmosphere. I love the way that the film sort of brings your guard down through the first part, and then it smacks you in the face with some of the most tension-filled chase scenes, most tension-filled scenes where you don't know where Michael's going to be, stuff like that. Like, it's hard for me to really articulate into words Halloween into a setting like this with no preparation or script provided. I forgot I even watched it in April. But I've talked about this film billions of times on the show. In fact, if you want to see my in-depth thoughts about Halloween, the original film, definitely go check out the ranking that Miles and I did. It was a 3-part series of ranking every single film in the Halloween franchise. And that also includes Halloween 2, which is the next film that I watched in April, just a few days later on the 25th of April. Halloween 2 from 1981, more of the night he came home. After failing to kill stubborn survivor Laurie and taking a bullet or 6 from former psychiatrist Dr. Samuel Loomis, Michael Myers has followed Laurie to the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, where she's been admitted for Myers' attempt on her life. The institution proves to be particularly suited to serial killers, however, as Michael cuts, stabs, and slashes his way through the hospital staff to reach his favorite victim. I love Halloween 2. I have it just a hair below the original Halloween, with 4.5 stars instead of 5. I think it's the perfect double feature. I think it's the perfect 2-parter. I love that it takes place literally seconds after the original film ends up. Most films, it'll be like a year later, several years later. This film picks up immediately from after the first film, so it really does feel like it is the second part of the story. It doesn't feel like it was made several years later, even though it was. I love Halloween 2. Miles is obsessed with Halloween 2. I think that's his favorite film of all time, besides Dawn of the Dead. Miles is obsessed with Halloween 2. Coming up the following day, I did a triple feature at the drive-in. One of the peak buddy nights of the year. Also one of the coldest nights of my entire life. Definitely should have bundled up significantly more, even though I was wearing a coat, a hoodie, long pants, wearing 2 pairs of socks, I believe, and was under a blanket. But this was a cold fucking night when I went to the drive-in with Emily, Midnight Miles, and his illustrious girlfriend as well. And we went to see the Of the Dead triple feature, the original George Romero trilogy. Night of the Living Dead kicked off the night just as the sun was going down. Night of the Living Dead, of course, 1968, another one of my favorite films of all time. They Won't Stay Dead. A group of strangers trapped in a farmhouse find themselves fending off hordes of recently dead, flesh-eating ghouls. I love Night of the Living Dead. Actually, just a couple weeks ago, my wife and I went to a trip to the cemetery where they shot the cemetery scenes in Night of the Living Dead. We also went to the mall where they shot Dawn of the Dead, which was the second film that played in this drive-in event. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. During an ever-growing epidemic of zombies that have risen from the dead, 2 Philadelphia SWAT team members, a traffic reporter, and his television executive girlfriend seek refuge in a secluded shopping mall in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. The mall is basically unrecognizable at this point, but there are some key things that you can point out from the film. There's also a museum within the mall at this time where you can see some props from the film. Not only that, from also Night of the Living Dead, some other zombie films from Evil Dead 2. There's all kinds of stuff in that museum. Don't know if at the time of this recording that museum is still open because Walmart has purchased the mall. So I don't know if they're going to be tearing down the mall, if they're going to be renovating it, if they're going to keep stuff open. So I don't know if that museum is still in existence. But that was a fun thing that we did this past March, a couple weeks ago. Went to see where they filmed it. There's a bust of Romero in the mall. You can see pictures of it on my Instagram if you follow me on Instagram at Buddy Candela, of some pictures from the trip. I love Dawn of the Dead. I love the soundtrack from Dawn of the Dead, potentially most of all. I don't like the film quite as much as I like Night of the Living Dead or of Day of the Dead, which was the third film that played. We did not stay the entire portion of Day of the Dead because I swear to God, it didn't even start until like 1 a.m, I feel. So we stayed for a little bit, but then we all had to be getting home. So Day of the Dead, which I've seen plenty of times, is from 1985. The darkest day of horror the world has ever known. A small group of scientists and soldiers take refuge in an underground missile silo where they struggle to control the flesh-eating dead that walks the earth above. It is a very long film, but I do think that the film is, well, actually, I don't think it's as long as Dawn of the Dead. But these films are long. Like, when you look at Night of the Living Dead, it feels quick. The other two are definitely a bit more of an intense experience to sit through. You kind of got to be locked in. So I'm glad that we didn't stay the entire time, because I would have sat there and been locked in until almost 4 a.m. probably, when we would have been getting out of there. And it was so fucking cold. It was freezing. So we definitely had to get out of there, but I definitely wanted to stay through at least part of it, just so we could say that we watched all 3 of them at the drive-in. And the last film that I watched in the month of April was another film that I love quite a lot, one of my favorite silent films of all time, which is Hexen. Grave robbing, torture, possessed nuns, and a satanic Sabbath. Benjamin Christensen's legendary film uses a series of dynamic vignettes to explore the scientific hypothesis that the witches of the Middle Ages suffered the same hysteria as turn-of-the-century psychiatric patients. But the film itself is far from serious. Instead, it's a witch's brew of scary, gross, and darkly humorous. I love this film. I love both versions of this film. They have a version that came out a little bit later on, which is the same film, but they add in a narration through some of the documentary portions of this, because it gives a history of witchcraft and astrology and stuff like that. So they are able to cut down a little bit of the runtime by not having it be title cards. So I do enjoy that portion of the film, but I don't enjoy the music that they use through the silent segments. I prefer the music through the original version. I wish that they had like a hybrid where you could watch a little bit of this and a little bit of that put together into one film to create Hexen, like the ultimate cut. I think that's definitely what needs to happen in the future. Is someone, even if it's like a fan edit, they have to put it together with the better music. Yeah, I mean, I love Hexen. Watched some solid films in April this year. That was a lot of stuff that was of good quality in April. A lot of 4.5, a lot of 5 stars. Loved April 2024. April 24 was a peak month for me. And now we're moving on to the month of May. So in the month of May, I actually didn't watch a ton of films, surprisingly. There were only 5 films that I watched in the entire month, one of which was Toy Story 2, so that obviously is not going to be part of what we're discussing today. But on May 1st, I decided to continue the trajectory of watching the Halloween series with a film that I had not seen in quite a number of years, which is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which has some of my favorite imagery of any horror film of all time. I think I've gone on record saying that, like, I love just like that main shot, that main poster of the kids walking like by the cliff with the sun going down and it's red. I absolutely love that scene, of course, that takes place towards the end of the film when they're showing all the different cities that are going to be affected by what's going to happen when the Silver Shamrock commercial starts playing on the television. The night no one comes home. A terrified toy salesman is mysteriously attacked, and at the hospital, babbles and clutches the year's most popular Halloween costume, an eerie pumpkin mask. Suddenly, Dr. Daniel Chalice finds himself thrust into a terrifying nightmare. My wife watched a portion of this film with me, and she thought it was absolutely horrendous. This film, for me, I've never really thought of it in a lot of the ways that a lot of other Halloween fans have. There are some fans who despise it because it doesn't have Michael Myers in it. There are some fans who are obsessed with it because it has been sort of the black sheep of the franchise for so many years. I've always been kind of middle of the road on it. Like, I've always really liked it, but I understand that it is a very flawed film. I don't like a lot of the characters in the film. I don't like how the story really plays out in a lot of ways, but I do love the atmosphere. I love the synth score. Like I said, I love the shot of the kids. I love the death scenes. I love the gore. I think there's a lot of great elements in this. But I think a lot of those elements feel a little bit disjointed. Yeah, I mean, again, this is another one I discussed in the Halloween podcast. So if you want more full thoughts on that, that is where you would get that information. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it quite a bit. A new release I saw in theaters this past year was I saw the TV Glow. I've told this story a few times, but I actually saw it at a mall theater by design. I did that on purpose because I knew that this film was going to be, like, I didn't know a ton about the film going in. Like, I didn't, like, read the synopsis or anything, but I kind of had, like, a general vibe about the film just by watching the trailers about it. So I intentionally went to go see it at a mall where I knew once the film let out, the mall was going to be closed, and I would just be walking through this atmosphere of just like this desolate sort of like ghost town, basically. And I thought that was a good way to watch this film because the film, it kind of reminds me like creepypastas in a way. Like, it's centers around a television show that nobody else remembers besides you. And I thought that was just like a great sort of way to experience this film, was to kind of just put yourself in that element just a little bit. Look a little closer. Teenager Owen is just trying to make it through life in the suburbs when his classmate Maddie introduces him to a mysterious TV show, a vision of a supernatural world beneath their own. In the pale glow of the television, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. I love this film. I thought this film was very good. I haven't rewatched it since it came out in theaters. It is one that I do want to watch again at some point in the future. Film has a little bit, I don't want to say like subliminal messaging, but the film has some undertones in it that maybe the average audience, like when you're going in to see it, you don't know this is going to be an allegory. But the film does touch on several concepts that I think are important today. So it's definitely a culturally significant film. I don't think people are going to actually go to this film with the intention of I mean, I guess now that it's out and people are aware of it, but like going in based on trailers, going in the way I went on, I didn't know it was going to be tackling some of these issues that it was tackling. So I do commend the film for that. But overall, I like the creepy atmosphere. I love the tone of the film. There's a lot about this film that I enjoy, and I don't know if I like it more than the other film from the director, because they also did the I'm trying to think of what it's called. Now it's escaping. Oh, We're All Going to the World's Fair. Yeah, they also did We're All Going to the World's Fair. I don't know which of those films I like more. They're definitely very different in terms of the way they're shot. I mean, one's a found footage film. This is an actual film. One thing that I do like about this film, it has a very similar poster to the In Search of Darkness documentaries, and I love that documentary. So I see, like, I get because I have a poster of In Search of Darkness, so I always think of I Saw the TV Glow whenever I see that poster. But it's a great film. I enjoy it. So definitely go see I Saw the TV Glow if you have not seen it already. Definitely not a film for everybody. It is a little bit out there at times if you don't like stuff that's kind of abstract and supernatural, like not something where there's something constantly action-driven going on in front of your face. It might not be for everybody, but for me, it is a good, solid watch. The next film that I saw was later on in the month. Well, actually, I took a pretty big gap in between films. I watched Halloween 3 on May 1st and didn't watch another film until May 22nd. So it was a pretty big gap. So a couple days after that, on May 24th, I watched Vampire Hunter D, which I actually just saw in theaters last week. So this, spoiler alert, this will be involved in every single film I watched in 2025 list as well. Vampire Hunter D, I watched this actually outside by a fire with my wife and my sister-in-law. And we watched it on VHS tape. We watched the subtitled version when I saw it in theaters just now. We did see the dubbed version of it just because I've never seen the dub. And just the timing of it worked out. I don't really have a preference of sub versus dub. I'm not a purist like Jared. It just kind of like depends on what my mood is and what the subject matter is. Like, I don't know if I'd ever want to watch certain animes, the dubbed version, or maybe I grew up with the dub version, like with Dragon Ball Z. Like, it's hard for me to just watch the subtitled version at times because it's not what I grew up with. So for me, like, I don't have an official preference if I prefer sub or dub. I'm just whatever. I'm just like, let's watch it. Like, I don't care what version of it is. But I do own the VHS of the subtitled version. So when I went to see it in theaters, if I'm going to pay money to see it, I wanted to see like the different versions. So we didn't end up going to see the dubbed version. When our darkest dreams become real, reality becomes a nightmare. In a far future time ruled by the supernatural, a young girl requests the help of a vampire hunter to kill the vampire who has bitten her and thus prevent her from becoming a vampire herself. I've seen this film 3 times, only 2 times on Letterboxd because the other time I watched it, I didn't rate it for whatever reason, but I did watch it in 2020 as well. For whatever reason, I forgot to watch it, but I knew that I watched it because I watched it like as soon as I got the VHS of it. So I watched it then. I watched it last year in front of the fire, and then I watched it again last week. So this film is relatively fresh in my memory, but I thought this film was great. I love the look and sound of 80s and 90s anime. Like if you grew up on Dragon Ball, like a lot of the sound effects that they use for like the transformations and in the fighting scenes, it's very similar sound effects from what you have heard. Love the art style. I love the characters in the film. I'm not a fan, so I did not watch this with the subtitle version for this particular one. But I don't know if in the Japanese version, I cannot remember, like reading the subtitles, if her name was actually Doris or if they changed the name for the English version. I'm not sure, but I just thought Doris was a little bit of a strange name for the main woman lead. But I thought this film was great. D is obviously an iconic character within anime. I do want to watch Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. I've never seen that yet. And I'm sure there's a lot of, like, I've never read the manga, nothing like that. But I love the film. I love just the general atmosphere. I love the world that it creates. It's a very nostalgic world for me, even though I've only seen it a couple times. Obviously, I love vampires in general, so a vampire anime is going to be right up my alley. Not a lot else I really want to say about it at this time. Because I do want to watch Bloodlust. Maybe I'll do like a double feature podcast or something like that. But I do really enjoy the film. When I watched it in theaters, I did bump up my rating slightly just because that second time that I watched it, I mean, we were outside and we were doing other things. Like we were in the hammock. We were just hanging out, like talking through part of it as well. Not that we weren't watching it because we definitely were watching it. But I did bump up my score a half star because I was fully like lasered into it at the cinemas. So the last film that I watched that month was on the 30th, and it was In a Violent Nature. And I've told the story of when I saw In a Violent Nature in theaters plenty of times, but basically when I went to see this fucking thing in theaters, there were some fucking bros in the back row talking to each other throughout the whole movie. Like, not even about the movie, just like having a conversation. People were playing on their phone, getting up, walking around. Like, it was just not a good theater experience. But that doesn't necessarily affect my opinion of the film at all, because I still think the film was kind of mid. I gave it 2.5 stars. I did enjoy the parts of it that I did enjoy, but there was a whole lot of it that I didn't really care for that much. Nature is unforgiving. The enigmatic resurrection, rampage, and retribution of an undead monster in a remote wilderness unleashes an iconic new killer after a locket is removed from a collapsed fire tower that entombed its rotting corpse. This film does answer the question, what does Jason Voorhees do when he's not killing people? And what he's doing when he's not killing people is wandering around aimlessly in the forest. Lots of shots of nature in this film. There are some incredibly gory kills in this. There's a lot of fun moments in this. I do think, even though it was very gory, there were a lot of things that I thought could have gone a little bit further. Like, there's one scene, I can't remember the exact weapon, but it's some sort of tool in a shed. Like, I think it's like some sort of like buzzsaw or something. I think they could have done a little bit more with that. I mean, what they did was cool, but like, as I'm watching it, I was like, oh, I can't believe they didn't do this. Like, if I would have shot this is how I would have done it. Of course, the scene on the cliff is iconic. So I would rewatch a highlight reel of this film, or maybe I would have this film on like outside again if I was in front of a fire, like watching a film. Like, maybe this was something I would just pop on for fun or something like that. But overall, I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, it was kind of mid. I wasn't overly impressed with it. You need more of a story. Like, you need more of a story to keep yourself invested in this. Like, this one had a very basic story, obviously. It is following the killer for the large majority of the film. It doesn't necessarily mean that the killer is really the focus of every single scene, but you are following the killer. So like, there's a lot of stuff where you're just like walking around looking at trees. So for me, it wasn't the most entertaining film throughout. I am glad I saw it. I did like the parts that I liked a lot, but it's not something from beginning to end I can recommend to everybody. If you're a hardcore horror fan, like, definitely go check it out. But I have a feeling like a lot of people have similar opinions to me. Like, a lot of people feel the same way that I feel about the film. So that's In a Violent Nature, and that is the month of May. So now we're moving into the summer months. We're talking about June, which is Mr. Moon's birthday, because Mr. Moon was born in June. And yeah, so let's just get right rolling with the month of June. Starting off with a pretty campy film for the month of June, we are talking about Deer Camp 86. Perhaps the story of watching the film is a little bit more interesting than the film itself, but let's dive into the plot. They should have stayed in Detroit, where it was safe. In the fall of 1986, 6 knuckleheads from Detroit, wow, traveled north to partake in the annual tradition of deer hunting. But something has been awakened and the hunters become the hunted. This film I gave an extra half star on Letterboxd, mainly because the main character looks almost identical to Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil. If they would have made him have better outfits, you would have just believed that this was Leon. This could have been a Resident Evil film. There's not a ton to say about this film. It was an enjoyable one-time watch. Like I said, the story about going to see the film is a lot more interesting than the film itself. Miles and I went to go see this film at the theater that I call the Miles Fetish Theater. Miles is obsessed with this theater in Elyria. It's called the Cobblestone Square. He's literally obsessed with it. Like, anytime a film is playing at a theater relatively close by, he will not go to it, and he will refuse to go to it because this theater is showing it. Literally obsessed with this theater. This theater is old as hell. Chairs are uncomfortable as fuck. Screen's not that great, and it's very far away. But Miles is obsessed with it. The typical Miles theater. So Miles and I go to see this film. It's an independent release. There is one showing of this film at the Elyria Fetish Theater of Miles. So we go there. It's a 10:25 showing. And we bought our tickets there because we found no need to buy our tickets in advance because we knew that pretty much no one was going to be there. And to our surprise, we get there, we select our seats. Well, we're looking at our seats on the screen, and we notice that there's only 2 seats in the theater occupied by us, but there is a third seat that it does not let you book. It is in the front, dead center of the screen at a 10:25 showing for an independent film. And surely, we thought this was some sort of glitch, or we thought that that seat was broken. So they had it blocked off on the screen that you could not select that seat. But to our bewilderment and amazement, there was one raging lunatic who had purchased a front row dead center seat to Deer Camp 86 at a 10:25 p.m. showing at the Elyria Miles Fetish Theater. We were stunned. We could not believe that, let alone anyone else was in that theater with us, but selected that seat, of all seats. What a lunatic. The next film I watched was a 2021 film, straight to streaming. I think this was a Shudder film called Landlocked, directed by Paul Owens from 2021. The past has a mind of its own. A video camera turns into a glass to the past in this lo-fi yet highly ambitious head-turner, following a young man who gets to reconnect with his family's history through old, strangely immersive home movies. I loved the aesthetic of this film. I loved the way that the film... I just loved the general vibe of the film. Again, it was not very interesting. It was not the best film to necessarily watch if you're looking to be entertained incredibly, but I did enjoy the parts of it that I enjoyed. I also watched this film outside, and I watched another film accompanying it, again, outside in my backyard. I love to create like a little drive-in in my own backyard. So you can hear the cats fucking hissing at each other right now. They're fighting. I'm going to pause for a second and get these cats under control. They need to be in a timeout. Do not debink. We do not debink. Do not. Okay, the Bink has been reprimanded for his behavior. He loves to attack his siblings at any chance that he gets. He's sort of like a wolf, actually, which is ironic because now we are talking about The Company of Wolves from 1984. The Desire, the Fantasy, the Nightmare. An adaptation of Angela Carter's fairy tales, young Rosaline dreams of a village in the dark woods, where Granny tells her cautionary tales in which innocent maidens are tempted by wolves who are hairy on the inside. As Rosaline grows into womanhood, will the wolves come for her too? This film was a great folk horror aesthetic watch. I love how it credits the wolf animatronic creator in the opening credits. Like there's I've never really seen that a lot in films. Like sometimes you'll see special effects supervisor or whatever, but it literally credits the creator of the wolf animatronic in the opening credits. So they knew that they had something good. The special effects in this film are absolutely wild. There's a dinner scene where the man's face skin is pulling off, and the grandma's head gets karate chopped off her body and shatters against a wall. And there's a wolf bursting out in the guy's body, like on the poster. There's so much in this film that's great. It's a good gothic folk horror, dark fantasy aesthetic. It's basically the big bad wolf, and you have Little Red Riding Hood running around. One thing that I will say is it kind of doesn't know exactly who its audience is. Like there's some gruesome moments, but then there's also some moments that are more like lighthearted. So it's a little bit of a just disjointed film at times. But needless to say, a good, solid folk horror watch. The perfect film to be watching outside. Coming up next in June is a film that I've talked about on this show a plethora of times, and I will talk about it a plethora of times more, as many times as it comes up. We are, of course, speaking about my favorite franchise of all time, the Halloween franchise. This is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. 10 years ago, he changed the face of Halloween. Tonight, he's back. Michael returns to Haddonfield for Jamie Lloyd, the orphan daughter of Laurie Strode, and her babysitter Rachel. Can Dr. Loomis stop him before the unholy slaughter reaches his innocent young niece? You'll have to watch the film and find out. I love Part 4, and I am starting to like the Thorn trilogy more and more each passing year. There are lots of things about the Thorn trilogy that I particularly do not enjoy. But I don't know if it's my nostalgia kicking in. I don't know if it's just my standards for horror in general are getting a lot lower. But over the course of the last few years, I've really found myself coming back to love the Thorn trilogy in a plethora of different ways. I know I'm using the word plethora a lot. But these films, I really want to do like a deep dive of the Thorn trilogy at some point in the future. Really dissect these films, really give my thoughts about them, really sort of give them their justice that they deserve, and justice for Michael, not justice for Jason. If you guys catch the very niche Metallica reference there. I love Part 4. It's usually in my top 4 or 5 when I rank the franchise. I don't normally put it above... Well, obviously it's not going above Halloween 1 or 2. But sometimes I've floated putting it in that third spot. But for now, I think it's firmly in the top 5 of the franchise for sure. Halloween 4, one of my absolute favorite of the franchise. Moving on to the next film that I watched, is another film I'm going to be doing a bit of a deep dive on, and that is Ghost, Right Here, Right Now. Of course, the concert film from the concerts that I was at in LA at the Forum to finish off their Impera album cycle. Haunting cinemas worldwide, whether you're a devoted disciple looking to relive treasured memories of the Ghost live spectacle, or among the curiously uninitiated. Right Here, Right Now will put you right there, putting your phones down and living in the moment as a shadow of uncertainty looms, completely spellbound and in the thrall of this bombastic yet intimate cinematic portrait of Ghost. One of my favorite theater going experiences of the year. It's not very often I dress up to go to the movie theater, but I did wear an on-theme outfit to this. And again, I want to do like an in-depth review of not only this film, but sort of the whole Impera album cycle. It's my favorite era of Ghost as of yet. So I really want to do a deep dive talking about my experience with the Impera album cycle. So I don't want to talk too much about that film here because I do plan on doing that sometime relatively soon-ish. So I definitely want to save all of my thoughts and feelings about Right Here, Right Now for that right then. Coming up next is a film I watched with Miles, a film that he is obsessed with. He talks about it every chance that he gets, and that is Humanoids from the Deep. From the ocean depths they strike to terrorize, to mate, and to kill. After a new cannery introduces scientifically augmented salmon to a seaside town in the Pacific Northwest, a species of mysterious mutated sea creatures begin killing the men and raping the women. This is one of Miles's favorite films of all time. No questions about it. This film is a film that he will talk about until you're in the depths, until you are in the deep dark world of Miles going on various tangents. I mean, I don't really know what to say about Miles. I really don't know what to say about that man at times, but the effects in this film are great. There's certain elements about the story I don't like, and I don't like, obviously, how the majority of the story is focused around sea creatures running around raping people. But the special effects are great. It has some cheesy elements to it that's a little bit fun. I just don't particularly enjoy the content that much. I think they could have come up with a much better story to do this with. So Humanoids from the Deep, I do acknowledge its significance. I do acknowledge how well they do a lot of the things. Just for me, it doesn't really do it in a lot of aspects. I still gave it 3 stars, but it's not a film that I really want to revisit very often. Coming up next, obviously still working my way through the Halloween franchise, we got Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Michael lives, and this time they're ready. 1 year later, Michael Myers' traumatized young niece is horrified to discover she has a telepathic bond with her evil uncle, and that he is on his way back to Haddonfield to begin the carnage again. I'm not going to go in depth about Halloween 5 again. I notoriously rated Halloween 5 the lowest ranked Halloween film of all time in my original ranking. I believe on my second ranking, it's more like midway through the list. So like I said, like the Thorn trilogy, like it's really growing on me recently. So I enjoy it. It's still not one of my favorites in the franchise, but I do acknowledge that it's a lot better than I thought it was. Another film that I revisited, like I was revisiting the Halloween films, my wife wanted to watch Rosemary's Baby, and we made it a point to watch it on VHS in an aesthetically pleasing atmosphere. I wanted to create it more like an aesthetic watch. Like I wanted it to feel like very old-timey. I believe she was sewing at the time, and we were watching this in our little office area. It was very cozy. I notoriously think this film is incredibly overrated, and after this rewatch, I still do. Like, I understand its significance. I understand why people like it, but for me, I think it's a bit overrated. I think it's not necessarily a film that is one of my go-tos. Definitely not. I don't like Roman Polanski as a person. a very strange fellow indeed. So I don't necessarily like supporting his films, but for its significance within the horror sphere, my apologies, and with film in general, you do have to acknowledge it. Pray for Rosemary's Baby. A young couple, Rosemary and Guy, move into an infamous New York apartment building known by frightening legends and mysterious events with the purpose of starting a family. 2 stars. It's a solid 2 stars. A couple days later, we had another 2.5 to 2 star films. Went to the drive-in and watched 2 new releases that I was not particularly thrilled after I watched them. I thought they were both... Well, really, I thought one of them sucked, but I thought this first one was okay. A Quiet Place Day 1, which I talked about briefly in my ranking of the 50 films that I saw in 2024. I talked about A Quiet Place Day 1 a little bit. Hear how it all began. As New York City is invaded by alien creatures who hunt by sound, a woman named Sam fights to survive with her cat. I'm just kind of done with this franchise. Like, I thought the first 2 were okay. I was like waiting for them to do something that was going to make it a lot better because I thought the first 2 were very, very equally enjoyable. Like, there's nothing about them that I particularly is going to make me come back. They were both good, fine, one-time watched. By this third one, like, I mean, it's the same shit. Like, they're not really doing anything to change up the format, at least in my opinion. I did see this at the drive-in, so it's not necessarily the greatest place to watch and enjoy a film for all of its merits. But there's not much in this franchise that's keeping me coming back. They're really going to have to change things up in the next one in order to make me interested. I mean, I'm still going to see it because I have to see it. But there's nothing about this franchise that's making me really, truly want to stay invested in it. And this other one I've been completely done with for a while, but I just saw it because it was at the drive-in. The Strangers Chapter 1. Jesus fucking Christ. I did not like this film. They don't need a reason. After their car breaks down in an eerie small town, a young couple are forced to spend the night in a remote cabin. Panic ensues as they are terrified by 3 masked strangers who strike with no mercy and seemingly no motive. This film was booty. Like, this film was booty. It's violence for the sake of violence. I get it that that's scary to some people. For me, I just thought this film was boring. I didn't find it disturbing. I did not find it scary. I found the decisions that the characters make in this film are completely asinine, completely blasphemous. There's some of the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life in this film where, like, they just leave the house unlocked while the guy goes down the street and walks to the store. This shit was booty. This shit was booty. What a shitty way to end off the month of June. What a terrible way for June to end up. I think that this may wrap up this podcast. I think June would be a good place to sort of, put a pin in it, come back. We'll hit the rest of the summer months and work our way through the end of the year in the next episode. So we are going to cut it at the end with June here. I want to thank all you guys for listening and watching, and I will see you guys in the outro. Well, that's about it for this time, guys. I hope you enjoyed every single horror film I saw in 2023, 24. What the fuck year are we in now? Jesus Christ. Every single horror film, this ongoing series I've been doing. Thank you guys for sticking it out to the end. I will see you guys back here again for another episode of Buddy's House of Horror coming at you very, very soon. So take care and stay spooky.